Hello everyone, my name is Master Summerman, and this is kind of a different type of video than something I usually make, but I've kind of wanted to make something like this for a little while now, and there will probably be something more in-depth on this kind of in the following months, but I figured with the last Super Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC character arriving early next week, I kind of wanted to make a little bit of a retrospective here, take a bit of a trip back memory lane, and talk about a franchise that I have sank most of my life into. There's not a lot else I want to get into it other than that, so, yeah, let's kind of get to it. So for Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, I think my earliest memory I have with that game would have been with my babysitter, who had 3 younger kids who were closer to my ages anyway. She was quite a fair bit older, but anyway, I used to play a lot of Nintendo 64 games with our kids, such as Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Mario Party, etc. And those were kind of the games that we would have grown up playing. And then one day their cousin was going to be down, and when I say we used to play a lot of N64 games, we used to play a lot of those, but we were also forced to go outside all the time too, because it was one of those, oh well, if it's nice you shouldn't be indoors, or rotting your brains away, and all this other stuff that I just didn't believe in at the time, and you know, I wanted just whatever escape I could have at the time. So anyway, yeah, so fortunately it ended up being a rainy day, which were our favorites, because then we were never forced to do anything, so we ended up basically playing a lot of Smash 64 that day, and I don't have too many other memories beyond that, other than it was a game that I had never heard of at the time. And it's funny thinking, like, in that time frame, Melee would have been out at the time, but I was such a young kid that I didn't understand, like, I didn't even know what the GameCube was until quite a fair bit later. I think that's one of my favorite Smash memories, even if I don't have a whole lot of, like, memory of it, and kind of just how much that would have impacted things down the line, I guess. I guess what Smash 64 represents to me is, I guess, just a game that I could always go back to at any time if I ever wanted, and really just have a fun time. It's a bit of a simple game in hindsight, but I mean, it's still a game that I've played a lot of. Even when Brawl was out, I remember still playing a lot of Smash 64 with friends, and just playing the N64 a lot in that time period in general. You know, when Melee was out for a while, I don't think I wanted to really kind of go back to the N64 too much, but I mean, I did still, you know, I went back to it a fair bit in the late 2000s, early 2010s, kind of that weird middle period between Brawl and Smash 4, and even now, like, looking back on it, it's just something that I feel, yeah, it's antiquated, sure, but it's something that I definitely feel like I could always go back to if I ever needed to have a good time with something, and yeah, I'm definitely forever grateful for all the memories it gave me. Now, Super Smash Bros. Melee. Now, there is a game that has given me a lot to say over the years. Oh man, like, where do I even begin with this game? Like, like, what has or hasn't been said about this game for years and years and years? I would have first found out about Melee, it must have been either late 2003 or early 2004. I'd say it must have been early 2004, because it would have been after I had known what the GameCube was. Which I know at that point it would have been out for a couple of years by then, but Again, young child, I didn't know any better really at the time. But there was this kid in the back of my bus named John, and he and I were kind of good friends for a while, and anyway, one day he was telling me, I knew that he had a GameCube, and one day he was telling me that he said he had a Smash Brothers game that had Peach and Bowser in it, and at the time, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, Peach and Bowser are not in the N64 game, what are you talking about? And then I learned that Melee was a thing, and, you know, I remember this actually, I was sitting in my grandmother's senior's apartment at the time, and I called up this video rental store that was in our town. It was the same one that I told stories of going out of business like a decade ago, and I was asking them, hey, do you have Super Smash Bros. On the GameCube? And sure enough they did, and I rented it like once, and pretty much the rest was history. I ended up asking for it for, I think it would have been Easter, actually, that I would have asked for it, which I know Easter's a weird holiday to get gifts sometimes, but sometimes my parents treated Easter like a little bit of a mini Christmas. Sometimes they'd usually get me, like, one thing if I wanted, and sometimes they still do, like, they might get me, like, a gift card or something. But yeah, that's more or less kind of when I got Melee, and the rest was history. I definitely sank a lot of time into that game. Definitely played that game a lot over the years. And like, this was still at a time when you could easily buy it. It wasn't like it was a hard to find thing at all. It was still selling like hotcakes for the GameCube, which in reality was probably not hotcakes, because we all know the GameCube unfortunately didn't really sell the greatest, but I can't fault it too much. I still loved that thing growing up. But yeah, I think like most other people, it was definitely a very impressionable game for me as a young child. You know, there were a lot of franchises I didn't really know of at the time. You know, I wasn't really into anything that wasn't Mario or like Mario related. Like, I wasn't into Legend of Zelda at the time. I wasn't into Pokemon. I wasn't into Kirby, Metroid, Star Fox, pretty much any of the franchises that I absolutely love nowadays. I can definitely thank Smash Brothers for introducing me to those games. Probably my most vivid memories of Melee usually, I think, came from having to actually unlock the characters, because Melee had about more than half of its characters needing to be unlocked, and, you know, this was a time before I really was using the internet for a whole lot of things, so I didn't know how to unlock most of the characters. I kind of played classic mode on a whim, because that was how you unlocked Jigglypuff in Smash 64, and lo and behold, that was how you unlocked Jigglypuff in Melee as well. And I don't know when I would have eventually unlocked all the characters. I feel like it was sometime either just before I was in 2nd grade or about in 2nd grade, I want to say. And then sometime after I unlocked all the characters, I don't remember why, maybe memory card restraints or something, but I ended up accidentally erasing my save file and having to do it all again. But this was after I had already, like, started using the internet a little bit for things, so I started learning that there were other ways of unlocking characters. And, the character that I think took me the longest to get originally was actually Luigi, because to unlock him, you had to finish the first stage of Adventure Mode with the 2nd digit of the timer, like the seconds digit, being a 2. And for doing that, that would cause like a secret Luigi fight, and then you finish the rest of Adventure Mode and you fight him to unlock him. And I had seen that a couple of times as a kid, but I didn't know at all what triggered it, because why would anybody know to do that? I ended up eventually unlocking Luigi through versus matches, which I think took a very long time. Like, I think it was one of the last ones you would ever unlock doing that. I unlocked a lot of the later characters with versus matches, like, Mewtwo, I know I did that through E700 versus matches. I remember when I unlocked Ganondorf, I just had this old friend of mine at my house that I didn't stick friends with this guy for too long because he eventually moved out, and we would cross paths in, like, middle and high school occasionally, but, like, I didn't see him too much before that. This was one of the very few times I had talked to him after he moved and before middle school. He was just randomly down at my house, we decided to play for a bit, and then suddenly I ended up unlocking Ganondorf at the time, which was kind of strange. But, yeah. There was just a lot of memories that I had playing that game, and, you know, like, I think over time some of those memories kind of changed a lot because, you know, I was never really too much into the whole competitive scene, and I know that, especially in the last, I'd say, decade or so, has kind of become a lot more mainstream than it was kind of in the 2000s. I'm not saying it didn't exist in the 2000s, but I think the advent of the internet and Twitch and everything kind of gave rise to kind of this newfound popularity Melee had, but I was never attached to the newfound popularity that game had because it wasn't really... It definitely didn't reflect the memories I had with the game growing up, you know? I used to play Melee again with my babysitter's kids all the time because they eventually got a GameCube and got that, and, you know, we used to play it a lot there, and I remember I'd unlock some characters for them eventually, or some stages, and I don't think I ever unlocked all the stages, actually, until I was in high school, which was, kind of right about before it became, like, a mainstream esport. Like, I'm not saying it wasn't popular again before that, but if I threw in the timelines, this was just before the whole time when Nintendo tried to shut it down at EVO, and I feel like that only boosted its popularity beyond that. You know, it was kind of the summer before that me and my friend Alex used to play that game a lot, and I know Brawl was out for a number of years by this point. This was after Smash 4 was announced, actually, but we used to just play a lot of Melee at the time, because actually I think my Brawl disc was scratched and not working or something, so we just used to play a lot of Melee, and some of the videos we recorded, like, they're dumb, but probably some of the funniest videos I think I ever had recording a game, and I think that, like, it's definitely a lot of memories that I definitely would not trade for... I definitely wouldn't trade those away for anything. It was definitely a really fun time, and, you know, I think a game with that kind of staying power, it may not be a game I would revisit too much nowadays, because, putting it very mildly, I actually find Melee kind of hard to go back to, despite the memories I have with it, but it is still a game that I definitely respect it a lot for a lot of the memories and good times that it brought. It definitely brought a lot more good times than bad. I just find it personally hard to go back to otherwise. Just certain things about it I find very antiquated. Even Smash 64, despite being even jankier, I actually would say I find kind of hard to... I find Smash 64 easier to go back to in some ways. So, yeah. All in all, though, definitely a very influential game for me, and... yeah. Oh boy, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Now, there is a game that... oh boy, that was a game when that was coming out. That was perhaps one of the biggest hype periods I've ever had in my life. And that's a hype that you can only just feel by going back to the Smash Dojo website, which is surprisingly still up, and just taking a trip back down memory lane there. Oh boy, those were definitely the days. I'm not sure when I exactly would have first heard about the game. It would have been like shortly after its initial 3 trailer. I'm just not sure exactly how I first found out about that. I was pretty internet savvy at the time, so I was probably browsing IGN or something at the time, or GameSpot, or whatever site I used to go to for whatever at the time. And I probably just ended up stumbling across the page at the point. And I remember at the time we were actually still on dial-up internet at the time, yes, even in 2006. And, joys of countryside living, by the way. I remember that was when I ended up having to watch the trailer at, like, relatives or friends' places that had faster internet than I could, because we couldn't even load the official trailer at all. Like, it just would not load, period, so I ended up, like, anytime I was ever at a relative's place or a friend's place, I would always watch that stupid trailer, just because I couldn't watch it when I was at home. And I just remember stuff like the Final Smashes, which were a new thing, and it was definitely a game that I knew I wanted to get as soon as it was coming out, because I was starting to kind of get into that phase of, you know, if there was a game I wanted, I would be buying it on the day it came out, and, that's kind of what happened, I think, with Brawl as well. I don't know if it would have been the first game I pre-ordered. It might have been. But, yeah, it was definitely a game I know I got on launch, but even getting to the launch was another story altogether. So, I know with the Smash Dojo, like I said, I used to check that website just about every day back when I was in about 5th grade or so, and I remember just having a lot of fond memories checking the updates every now and again. I didn't realize that, there was a time I didn't realize that it was a weekly, like a 5 days a week, Monday to Friday thing. I didn't realize that they didn't update it on weekends. And I remember there was one weekend where I was like, I saw that they weren't updating something for a couple of days, and I'm like, what's going on? Why aren't they updating this? Why is this game, like, not coming now or something? It was some stupid. And then, like, they revealed, like, some Pokemon the next, like, Monday, and I think it was either maybe Munchlax or Gulpin or something, I think. And I was like, oh, it's only Monday to Friday, got it. And, yeah, I used to just look at that site. Even in school, I used to look at it, because for some reason that website was not blocked. And, yeah, I used to just browse that and look at the information of new fighters and upcoming stages and everything that was just kind of being shown off for that game. I remember it was definitely a time you had to be there to be in the mood for. You know, I don't know if something like that would really... I don't know if something like that would necessarily happen today or not. I know some stuff with, like, Smash 4 was kind of the same way with, like, Miiverse and such, but I don't know if it was really... It didn't really feel like it was the same vibe for me, and I'm not sure if that was just from my growing older or something, I'm not really sure. I remember also on the topic of the game's launch, the game got delayed twice, and I remember this was so stupid. I remember almost, like, wishing my parents would buy me a Japanese copy of the game. Little did I know it was also delayed in Japan as well. I thought for some reason that it came out in late 2007 in Japan. Because it was supposed to come out in December of that year, and in 2007, which I was already, like, super big into Mario Galaxy at the time as well, because I was really anticipating that game as well. And, yeah, I ended up playing a lot of Galaxy in the meantime, but, when Brawl was coming out, there was pretty much no other game I wanted at that point beyond that. And then, funny enough, I ended up getting Guitar Hero 3, like, right after that, so that was also... I think I got that, like, only a few weeks after Brawl. But, yeah, it was just a time that you definitely had to be there to really believe, and I'm not sure, like, anything would really replicate that. I remember also waking up when the game got a second delay. I saw that on the dojo, because it was originally supposed to come out in December, and then it got pushed to February 10th, and then it got pushed back to March 9th. And I remember calling Microplay, which was the retailer that I was going to buy the game from. I was like, is it true that this game is delayed? Because some places were saying the 10th, and now it's February or March 9th, and like, what's going on? And I had to wait another month. Unfortunately, my birthday is actually in late February, so I remember I didn't really get a whole lot for that birthday otherwise, and I was, like, I didn't really think much of it at the time, which is funny enough, because I was still a young kid, but, anyway, I was wanting to go into town the morning that the game came out to pick it up, but, my dad just kind of ended up going in, like, anyway, and, he left without me. And I didn't know why. Like, he left like a few hours before me, and I was like, are you gonna take me into town so I can get the game? Little did I know he was coming home with the game anyway, because he knew that's all I wanted, so... And apparently the store was packed when that game was coming out. I wish I would have been there to really experience that, but I wasn't, but that was the first time I got a Smash game on launch, and it definitely was not the last. Definitely was not the last. I think what Brawl represents to me, looking back, is that it was really the game to introduce most of my favorite characters into the series. Like, early on, like, I had favorites in Smash 64 and Melee, and I still do, but Brawl was really the game that cemented pretty much all my favorite characters and introduced pretty much all my favorite characters, besides Ultimate, obviously, as well, but we'll get more into that later. And I even got most characters I wanted at the time. Like, I was... Like, when I was playing Mario Kart DS, I was a really big fan of Rob the Robot in that game, and I was... Like... I was like, it would be a pipe dream, but it would be awesome if Rob was in the game, and then lo and behold, Rob actually got in, which apparently was... I've read conflicting things that I thought it was because of Mario Kart DS, but apparently it may have been just a sheer coincidence that Rob might have been playing for Brawl around the time Mario Kart DS was coming out, and just no real connection between the two. But even then, I was still, like, super excited at the time when that was happening there. But then at the time, it also introduced other characters that I was excited for, like Lucas and Lucario, and, it kind of refined a lot of characters that I really ended up liking a lot, too. It was just a game that really, like, pushed the series to new grounds that I feel like certain things about that game do get taken for granted a lot because it's seen as, like, the most casual game, but damn it, I don't care. It's one of the most fun games in the series, I find. I think it has some of the most fun characters. Has some of the best stages in the game, even in the series, honestly. It definitely had one of the best soundtracks of the series, which, to be fair, the entire series has great music, but it was just a game that really... And not to mention Subspace Emissary, like, there was a mode that just elevated the game to whole new heights there, and I know Subspace kind of has this hit-or-miss reputation for some people, but I didn't really care because at the time, I think I was wanting a more experimental Wii platformer anyway, kind of after Super Paper Mario, and, like, I was kind of liking some of the more experimental platformers that the game was having, and I really liked Subspace a lot, personally. I know some people who don't, but I personally did quite a fair bit. I played... When I was bored, I would replay Subspace levels constantly, and it was just a game that... Looking back, I have a lot of great fond memories with. It's a game that I really don't feel I had any bad thing to say about it. It was a game that... I don't think a perfect game exists, but Brawl got pretty freaking close. You know, it was a hype that was nearly unparalleled, and a game that just basically delivered on all fronts. Not to mention things like the introduction of third-party characters, like I didn't touch on this either, but Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid and Sonic the Hedgehog. I was a big Sonic fan growing up, and it was just a game that it in so many ways it blew everything out of the water, and then some. So yeah, for that, Brawl, what can you say that hasn't already been said? It's a terrific game, even to this day. And that just leaves us to Super Smash Bros. 4, which obviously had 2 releases, the Wii U and the 3DS versions. And Smash 4's kind of an interesting game for me, because by the time it was first announced, I was already kind of well into the YouTube stuff at the time. I'd already done, like well over 20 Let's Plays at the time. I think I was very well seasoned into certain things at the time. And I'd kind of taken a bit of a backseat out of Smash for a time. Like, I played a lot of Melee in that era, but, like, I was kind of getting back into Mario Party for a couple of years, and that was kind of where most of my mind was on. But I do remember the E3 Direct when these games were announced, and I don't really remember much of anything else from that E3, maybe a bit of Mario 3D World, but yeah, these games, man, they take me back to that era of high school for me, because I was in high school when those games were out and coming out and first announced and everything. I was nearing the end of grade 10 at the time, and I ended up watching those trailers a good number of times. I didn't really totally get the whole, like, style that Smash 3DS was kind of going for initially. Whereas the Wii U game was kind of meant to be more, like, kind of what we knew and loved about the series, with the... I don't want to say realistic, because it was definitely a much more cartoony game than Brawl. I ended up getting super excited when, one of the first characters announced ended up being Mega Man, because I was a really big Mega Man fan at the time. And unfortunately, I don't think that excitement really translated to me actually liking him as a character, but that was something that I was very much excited for when that game was coming out. I wasn't really too much into the other characters, unfortunately, and unfortunately I wasn't really too into a lot of the characters at the time, but I do feel the game definitely did make a lot of important steps regardless, like, like in the way of, like, female diversity, up to Brawl, there was only, like, what, 3 or 4 female characters in the entire roster, and several of them ended up being, like, two versions of Samus, or 2 versions of, like, Sheik and Zelda. And Smash 4 just kind of spearheaded a new era for introducing, like, a lot more women into the roster, which, honestly, for diversity's sake, it was a good thing. My personal hype for a lot of those characters wasn't really there, but I at least do get it, you know? You had characters like the Wii Fit Trainer, Rosalina, Lucina, Palutena, Robin, like, there was just a lot more of that going on then. I think my favorite memory I have with Smash 4 was that around the time these games were coming out, first of all, the preface here, if anyone who's been following my channel knows for a while... Oh shoot, I just realized the background was wrong this whole time. I just realized we had the wrong background this whole time. Good editing, good editing. If anyone who knows me knows that, who's been following my channel for a while, they may know that the year these games came out, 2014, not a good year of my life at all. I don't look back too fondly on that. If there's one good thing I can look back on, it's that I started going to this youth group every Saturday night at the time, where it was kind of a place that was set up, I think, for, like, teens who were kind of, like, just wanting a place to kind of hang out, and some people like, I think the intentions were kind of mixed, but long story short, I ended up, like, meeting up with several people there that, you know, people I had known and people that I was friends with, and some people that I had become friends with at the time. There was this one kid named Morgan that, I had known for a while, but I didn't really talk to him or hang out with him too much, but we just kind of started talking about the video games and such at the time because we were playing. He used to take his Wii over and we would play Brawl at the time, leading up to Smash 4's hype period. Sometimes we'd play like a Brawl mod or maybe like Mario Kart Wii or something, because I know he was like super into Mario Kart Wii. But it was definitely a lot of Brawl that we played in that hype period leading up to that. But then when Smash 4 came out, I know I got the 3DS version at launch, and I know he did as well, but he didn't have a Wii U at the time, which I did, and I got the Wii U version at launch as well, and so I started taking the Wii U version there, and, like, that was just great, being able to play that with several people, and the Wii U version had 8-player support. We actually did have quite a few rounds of 8 players, which usually turned into me, Morgan, and my other friends Dakota and Landon versus like 3 or 4 other younger kids that didn't really know what they were doing, and it was usually super one-sided. But that's something that we did used to do quite a lot back in those days, and you know, it was definitely a memory that, you know, to this day I don't think I've ever really played I don't really think I've ever played Smash Brothers with 8 other players again ever since, but, you know, it's definitely a memory that I have and one that I'll always remember. I remember even, like, the first weekend we took the game to youth group, actually. I was live streaming Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, because that also had to come out the same freaking day as the Wii U version. And, I was only streaming that, I guess, like 7 hours or 6 hours a day or something, so, like, I had a lot more time to play Smash whenever I wasn't doing that, but I ended up, literally minutes before I was walking out the door, unlocking Rob, who was the last character I needed to unlock before getting everyone, and I ended up getting Rob, like, again, literally minutes before I was about to walk out the door, going towards youth group, and that's just a memory that, like, that was the last character I needed to, but then that was the first, like, youth group we went to after the game had come out. I don't really go back to Smash 4 a whole lot beyond that, because it's not really a game that I see much reason to go back to, honestly. Everything I like about it, I like a lot more about Ultimate. I actually don't really like that much of Smash 4's roster, if I'm being honest, because most of my favorite characters in that game ended up being most of my favorite characters from Brawl. And even some that were cut, like Ice Climbers, I get why they were cut, but I mean, it was still not what I wanted, really. And also, just, I was, again, not in the best headspace at the time. It was kind of hard for me to get hyped over certain characters because of just my personal life at the time, but all in all, though, they are games that they are games that definitely take me back to a certain place in my life. Even if I don't really go back to them much nowadays, I can't really deny that they did definitely serve a purpose for me at a certain point, and, you know, they came out at a time when I was kind of just starting to turn my life around a bit, and, you know, I do always look back on that era fondly as a result of that. It might not be my favorite Smash game, but it is definitely one that I have a lot of. I do have a fair, modest bit of memories. Probably not as much as the earlier games, but still games that definitely gave me a lot of purpose in life, and I can't really take that away. Alright, so the last game that we do have to talk about is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I've talked about religiously on end for the last 3.5 years now, and Honestly, I don't know what I can say about this game that I haven't already said before. We've been struggling to try to find the right words to say right now, but I'm gonna keep this very short with this one here because I actually plan to make a much longer retrospective about Ultimate specifically. Let's just say that this entire game is... It is so much more than anything I could have ever asked for. To say it's one of my favorite games of all time is an understatement. It is... It was a game that basically hit me in pretty much all the right spots when I needed a game to hit me in all the right spots. From the initial hype reveal, announcing most of my favorite characters in video game history, whether they eventually be through DLC or in the base game. I really can't think of a single time that I wasn't hyped for this game. For years after, even, I felt like, some of my friends can even attest to this, it could be argued that I was probably too hyped for this, maybe hyper-fixated on it, but I don't care, man. I really do not care. This game was... just hit me in all the ways that it needed to. It had most of my favorite characters, it had most of my favorite stages across the entire series, which I get that if people aren't nostalgia biased for the game, yeah, that is kind of a thing that does hurt it, I think, in some ways. But as someone who is, though, it really was just about everything I ever wanted. You know, it's basically fixed up almost all my issues I had with Smash 4's roster, and basically introduced a bunch of characters that I was actually interested in again. I can't say enough that I haven't already said already. This game just... I'm gonna have to make a video on it at some point in the future because... yeah, it was one of those games that just struck me in way more ways that I can't really even begin to describe. You know, I thought I was going to be calling it quits on the YouTube side of things when this game was coming out, and I gotta say, I think this was the game that honestly made me want to start making videos again and brought a lot of passion back into my life that I didn't think I really had. And when a game can do that, when a game can introduce you to a whole mess of new franchises that you would have never played, and when a game can just provide you with just hours upon hours of entertainment with friends, family, and I can't say a whole lot more that I haven't already said. It's, again, it's one of my favorite games of all time, and it is bittersweet, you know. It's bittersweet to see it coming to an end so soon, but damn it, it's been a journey that's not gonna be topped anytime soon, if not ever. It's a hype and a legacy that... It's a hype and a legacy that leaves me so speechless I don't even know what to say half the time, but... yeah, for years this has been a series that I've always been able to kind of go back to if I ever wanted to have fun with friends, or even just play against AIs by myself. It's a series that has always just meant a lot to me growing up, and you know, what more can you really say beyond that? Anyways, thank you for watching this retrospective. I've been Master Sermon, and until we meet again for the last reaction video, and until I eventually make that big old retrospective video that I was talking about with this game, because believe me, I have a lot more to say than I can't really place my mind off things, but when I can finally get into all the thoughts that I have with this game, that video is, it's gonna be something. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.